Bernie Madoff told the world he bought and sold a specific stock option every single month in enormous size. A Boston analyst went and counted those options. The world's exchanges didn't have enough of them, not even close. It took him about 5 minutes to see it. It took 9 years for anyone to listen. His name was Harry Markopolos, and in 1999 he wasn't hunting a fraud. He'd been told to copy one. Start where he started, one sheet of monthly returns, 1%, 1.1, 0.8, every month. Boring is the point. Nobody brags about boring. Boring is exactly what let this run for almost 20 years. Because on a chart, those little numbers stack into a shape no honest fund has ever drawn. A line climbing at almost a perfect angle. Barely a wobble. Barely a losing month in a decade. Markets don't do that. 1987 doesn't do that. 2000 doesn't. 2008 really doesn't. But his clients never saw a chart. They saw a statement in the mail, and it was always fine. That's the actual product, not riches, calm, a number that goes up while you get on with your life. And Bernard Madoff wasn't some stranger with a website and a promise. He helped build the electronic market that became NASDAQ. He later served as its chairman. His firm handled a real slice of Wall Street's daily order flow. Regulators asked him for advice. So when he also managed money quietly on the side, nobody wanted to be the one asking loud questions. You got in through a friend, a country club, a temple, or a fund that already had access. Half the pitch was that he might turn you down. Exclusivity sells harder than any brochure ever could. Back to Boston. Markopolos worked at Rampart, a firm that traded options for a living. He ran the math. His colleague Frank Casey arrived with a problem, not a suspicion. Clients kept leaving for a smoother fund. Management's instruction was simple. Whatever Madoff is doing, work it out and build us one of those. So Markopolos wanted it to be real. Reverse engineering. A winner is a good afternoon. Exposing one isn't. First, he had to understand what Madoff even claimed to be doing, in mechanical detail. The strategy had a name that sounds harder than it's. A split strike conversion. Step 1. Buy a basket of big familiar American stocks, the kind in the S&P 100. Step 2. Buy insurance. Put options that pay you back if those stocks fall. Step 3. Sell off your upside. Call options that cap how much you're allowed to gain. That's the whole thing. You're wrapped in a collar. You can't fall far, and you can't fly. It's a genuine strategy. Dull, defensible, exactly the sort of thing a cautious rich person nods along to. And it neatly explains the smooth line. Of course there are no big losses. He bought protection. Markopolos sat with that story for a few minutes. Then he stopped, because two things wouldn't fit. Problem 1. If you hold a basket of stocks, you move when the market moves. Some of it anyway. Madoff's returns barely noticed the market. Terrible quarters for everybody else were quietly fine quarters for him. A collar softens the ride. It doesn't cancel the road. You can't own the market and ignore it. Problem 2 is the one that never went away, and it's the one this whole story turns on. Options aren't printed on demand. For every contract you buy, somebody on the other side has to sell it. And there's a public running tally of how many exist. It's called open interest. Anyone can look it up. So Markopolos asked the only question that mattered. How many contracts would a fund this size actually need? Madoff was handling billions. To color billions, you need options in a matching, frankly enormous, size. Then he checked the entire market supply of those S&P 100 contracts. Every trader's, every firm's, combined. It wasn't close. Madoff alone would have needed more contracts than existed in the whole market. This is a parking garage with 40 spaces that has somehow sold 400 monthly passes. You don't have to inspect a single car to know. You only have to count the spaces. And there's the detail he could never fake. He controlled his own statements. He didn't control the exchange. He could print any trade he liked onto paper. He couldn't print an option that nobody ever sold him. Markopolos has said it took him 5 minutes to know, and about 4 hours to prove it properly. No wiretap. No insider. Public volume figures and a calculator at a desk in Boston in one afternoon. That's the thing worth taking away from this. Big frauds usually die on arithmetic, not on secret confessions. If that just changed how you'd read a too perfect track record, stick around. That's exactly what this channel does. Now here's the grim part. He was right in 1999. Madoff wasn't arrested until December 2008. In between, sit 9 years of a man carrying the answer into government offices and being shown the door. His first submission reached the SEC's Boston office in 2000. A short document, the core math, no response. He tried again in 2001. Same conclusion, tighter argument. Again, nothing moved. That year 2 journalists actually printed the doubts. Barron's ran a piece. A hedge fund trade paper ran another. Madoff offered something vague about proprietary methods, and everyone went back to filing their monthly statements. Markopolos wasn't alone either. Frank Casey, an analyst named Neil Cello, and a reporter, Michael Okrant, kept digging. They did the thing the regulators never bothered with. They picked up the phone and called around. If Madoff traded that size, the banks selling him those options would know his name by heart. So they asked the desks who'd be on the other side. Nobody had ever traded with him. In a business that gossips about everything, the largest options client alive had left no footprints anywhere. Then came the detail that genuinely scared them. Madoff wasn't charging the fee he could easily have charged. A manager with that record could take 20% of the profits. He waved it away. He let the feeder funds collect the rich fees instead, and kept only the plain trading commissions. Read that generously, and he's modest. Read it the other way, and he isn't selling performance at all. He's buying distribution. He's paying middlemen very well to keep new money arriving every single month. Because that's the machine underneath. Old investors get paid with the deposits of new ones, nothing else. It runs perfectly, in both directions, right up until more people ask for money out than put money in. By 2005, Markopolos had stopped being diplomatic. He wrote everything down and titled it exactly what it was. The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud. 29 red flags numbered with the arithmetic attached. He gave the SEC two options. Either it's a Ponzi scheme, or he's front-running orders from his own brokerage. He offered to help them check. He offered to go undercover. He asked only that his name stay off it. Because he was frightened. He thought some of the European money might be the kind you don't expose safely. He checked under his car before starting it. He carried a weapon. He waited for a knock that never came. The SEC did open investigations, more than one. They asked Madoff questions, and Madoff answered them politely. They never took the single step that would have ended the argument inside an hour. Every real stock trade in America leaves a record at a central clearinghouse. That isn't optional. If Madoff bought $1 billion of stock, the purchase sits in a database with his name attached. Nobody pulled it. For years, the check that would have stopped everything was one request away. Instead, in 2006, Madoff registered his advisory business, filled in the forms, and came out looking more official. Now look at who was supposed to be verifying any of it. His auditor was a 3-person accounting firm. One licensed accountant. A secretary, a partner in his 70s who had retired to Florida years earlier. Their office sat in a strip mall, in a room you could cross in about 4 steps. Tens of billions in reported assets, audited from a space smaller than most people's kitchens. Then 2008 arrived, and the market did the one thing this machine could never survive. Clients everywhere needed cash. Redemption requests came in for billions of dollars he simply didn't have. On December 10th, he told his 2 sons the business was, in his own words, one big lie. They called a lawyer. The lawyer called the FBI. Agents were in his apartment the following morning. The statement said roughly $65 billion. What was actually there wasn't a fraction of it. Investigators later concluded the investment arm hadn't bought clients a single share in well over a decade. Not a partial fraud, no stocks, no options, no trades at all. A printer and a very good story. Charities shut down, retirements disappeared, some people never financially recovered, and a few didn't survive it. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison, where he died in 2021. Markopolos testified before Congress and said the agency roars like a lion and bites like a flea. He'd handed them the case 5 separate times. The math had been sitting in a drawer the whole while. So here's the part you can actually use, and it has nothing to do with being rich. Every money story implies something about the outside world. A supply, a buyer on the other side, a record. Check the piece the storyteller doesn't control, not the returns, the volume, the custodian, the auditor's address. If a strategy needs more of something than the world contains, no amount of confidence fixes that. One man counted the contracts. The largest fraud in history had no defense except 9 years of silence. Cases like this deserve to be remembered. Subscribe, and next we'll follow the memo that unraveled Enron. Thanks for staying to the end. Take care of your people and check the paperwork.